and she's gorgeous and she's fabulous and she has so much to give and to contribute. And I'm super excited for you to meet her and to find out what she's going to share with us today. So here's, please come on out, Victoria. Everybody dance.
Okay, so my mic is hot now, but not literally hot. We had a funny moment backstage. I guess it's the immigrant in me. I literally thought that she was telling me my mic is going to be hot. I was going to check my ear, but so I'm really excited to be up here with you guys. And before I begin, just to get it out there, I was really nervous to come up here today and to talk to you, and this is not the first time I'm doing this. So just to clear out the air, I was talking with the amazing ladies in the back, my Jersey girls and Anya from Utah. I think that sometimes we are so nervous and become consumed by thoughts of what are people gonna think, are they gonna judge us, and all of these other things that we lose perspective of like what it is that is so important. I know for me, even with the social media world, I'm a private person. It was so hard for me to put myself out there, but it's so crazy that whatever it is that we are most afraid of or most self-conscious about or most uncomfortable with, that is essentially exactly the point where our biggest breakthrough lies. That is the point where we can just explode into dimensions that we cannot even imagine. There's been so many different things going on over the last several years. I don't even know where to start. I wanted to share with you guys some of my personal experiences, first of all, so hopefully there's something for you to take away from that, but also for anybody who knows me, yeah, I'm kind of a nerd, and my forte is science, so I felt like it would be almost unfair of me to come up here and not share some science with you guys. So we're gonna have a little bit of my like wacky, energy universe self up here, and we're gonna do some science as well. And wait, I forgot, I have a PowerPoint. Okay. So, overcoming challenges, personally and professionally. I think that probably all of you can relate that, I did that webinar with Maxine several weeks ago. It is really hard to have something be just personal or just professional. For me personally, I cannot separate. Maybe it's a gift, maybe it's a curse, but a lot of challenges that we face, either the professional comes into the personal or the personal comes into the professional. So, where should I start? Almost 30 years ago, my family and I came to the United States. Leaving a country a republic that actually no longer exists. And when I was little, I used to say, so I'm originally from the former Soviet Union, Eastern Europe, and I used to say that the Soviet Union fell apart because we left, because literally we came to the United States in October, and October is a very monumental month for my family, but literally within weeks after we left the former Soviet Union, it fell apart. So yes, I'm from a country that no longer exists, but we came here literally everything we had, everything we knew, and I give so much. I have so much immense gratitude and so much. I'm in such awe over my parents. My parents were younger than I am now, leaving everything they knew because they wanted, as God has said, the immigrant mentality that it's the land of opportunity. But more so, I came from a country where there was a lot of anti-Semitism. And as a matter of fact, I remember when I was 12 years old and I told my mom I want to wear the Star of David, and my mom is like, why? Or the conversation where my mom would say, you're Russian. And I would say that our nationality is that I'm Russian. And my mom would say, no, you're Jewish. And I actually looked back in our passports, it said that we are Jewish. That was our nationality. So that was kind of the mindset. But even aside from that, we were in a country where it didn't matter how hard you worked and how talented you were or not talented. You could build the world, and any moment it can all be taken away. Also in the case of Gada's family, any moment you could have lost everything. I know even in my family, my grandfather's father and mom, they had a huge factory. They were so successful and so wealthy, and everything was taken away from them. So it was that mentality because when we were there, that's what made it even harder for my parents to leave, because everything was fine. My dad would travel to Siberia. We were making money. I was like the only kid in the yard who had bananas and pears. And what's funny is we'd come out in the play yard and we would share with the kids, and they hated us. They hated us for the fact that we had it, even though my sister and I would go out and share it with all the kids. So when we came to the US, we gave up everything, and we had things to give up, and we literally had the amount of money in our pocket equivalent to like 4 pairs of sneakers today, whereas there we had everything. We had a summer house, we had everything. We gave it all up. And here I was, I walked into first grade, and the teacher was like, your name is Victoria. I was so confused. My parents called me Vika. Vika is Vicky in Russian. And I was so confused. And I'll tell you, it was hard. It was hard, but I tell you that it was hard for only one reason, because I feel like it is good to have things that are hard, because that is the only way that we can become stronger and greater. I feel and I believe that failures are gifts in disguise, messengers in disguise for us to become more, to be more, to reach for things that are impossible, because I can tell you for sure, everything is possible. Absolutely everything is possible. And that's another story which I'll go into as well, but my father was a distinguished scientist in Eastern Europe. My mother was an engineer. As far as that goes, my mom was told, you're a woman engineer, forget about it. My father, that was a whole other thing, but my father, he was just such a brilliant scientist. So after many years of trying to get our feet on the ground, and my sister and I also started working very early, yes, off the books, cash and all of that, but after my mom was cleaning homes and babysitting, and my sister and I would come and help. And outside of that, they were taking classes in community college, and my father was washing bathrooms in McDonald's. And people can be cruel, but it's okay. I remember we'd come visit my dad, and as my dad was washing the floors, and it was the same person would watch and wait for my dad to finish washing the floors and would pour his drink down to where my father would finish cleaning. But there's a lot of immigrant stories like that, and there's a lot of stories. I think that there is so much good, and it's so much more powerful than any kind of negativity that is out there. But we continued to try to get our feet on the ground. And after 32 interviews, when my dad finished, he needed to take a chemistry class in community college, because there was a lot of technicality where my parents' degrees were not transferring over. And 32 interviews with broken English, my father finally got his first job. His first job was at Warner Lambert, which is Pfizer today. And when he got the job at Warner Lambert, First of all, he made a friend in the company, and this was our first English-speaking friend. So he understood our broken English. He was just so much love. He showed us how loving Americans can be, and it was like the first person where we saw, wow, like how much love there is, because it was going through up until that point, it was just people were mean. People were mean just to be mean. So he was the first light in our life that showed us that there's so much love and so much positivity in everywhere around us. And during that whole time, my dad, of course, being the creative scientist that he is, which is always funny. There's photos from when I was little. I was like my dad's little scientist sidekick with little beakers, and we were constantly, I remember even in the kitchen, I remember making scrambled eggs. My dad's like, you are making a formulation there, so you gotta be very precise. I remember I had a cooking class in like middle school. They were teaching us how to make cheese sauce. Did you know like flour goes into cheese sauce? I was so confused by this, but anyway. So my mom had really bad seborrheic dermatitis. And I, throughout my whole entire childhood, was dealing with a lot of skin allergies, which I kind of worked so hard to forget about them. And my 2-year-old son, I'm a mommy of 3 boys, and my 2-year-old, Jacob, we discovered he has a horrific gluten allergy, but besides gluten, so many other allergies. And when I started to see my son suffering, it just flooded back to me, because I remember when my older son, Elijah, he was dealing with eczema, baby eczema. We were like, where's it coming from? We all had great, and then when I saw how much my son Jacob was suffering, and it all came flooding back to me. I had such bad allergies. I still don't know. I was never properly diagnosed, but I had the itchy scalp and hives and rashes. I remember I had a piano recital. I got so nervous. I scratched my forehead, and half of my forehead was covered in an insane rash. And just to point on that, how insanely powerful stress damages and destroys our body. This was my first experience with this, but there was a lot of skin issues going on between my mom's seborrheic dermatitis and my like allergies, where I remember I would lay there. Did you guys ever see the movie Face Off? I literally at night, I was like, I'll meditate my face off. I would like envision like my face and my scalp coming off, and in the morning I'll wake up and it'll be new baby skin. And I forgot about all of this. I worked so hard to forget it until like the things that come back to us when you see somebody else like suffering and you don't know how to help them. But anyway, my dad, getting all creative, started to play with something that was very, very native to us. So these little orange berries, which in Eastern Europe and Siberia are known for their healing abilities. The hippophae berries, which are also known as sea buckthorn. So he created a cream, little yellow cream. And just to tell you a little bit about the hippophae berries, they are literally these little orange miracle berries, and by the way, they have nothing to do with the sea. Please, for anybody who thinks that has anything to do with the sea, it has nothing to do with the sea. They are little berries that they grow in extreme climates, so like the Himalayas and Siberia, and because they grow in these extreme climates, it enables them to have these powerful immunity boosting abilities, because they themselves need to fight in an environment to survive. So they have impeccable immunity boosting ability. But they are also these little natural berries that are so abundant. They are one of the highest and purest concentrations of vitamin A, vitamin E, beta-carotene, omega-3, omega-6, omega-9, quinaic acid, tartaric acid, malic acid, which usually we'd have like a whole fruit basket here between tartaric and malic, some grapes, apples, and all of this is just in these little berries, and folic acid. And it's so abundant, and I literally didn't even go through everything. And in Eastern Europe, these berries were known, they were used in burn victim clinics for their healing ability. So my father started to play around and see what he can do, and he created the first Hippophaia cream. And he went up to management so proudly and was like, I got something you don't have. His little yellow cream, and they laughed at him. They laughed at him and they said, a yellow cream? No one will ever go for a cream that is not white. And at the time, it was Pond's. Like, Pond's was the cream. And that wasn't the end of the story. So my dad felt really, really defeated, but our family friend, who my dad met through the company, he was just so amazing. He told us, he's like, you guys have to go with it. You have something there. It's not, you can't just leave it for your wife and your daughter. You have to, this can make a difference on such a larger scale. And he's like, don't worry. He was very high in the company, and he had a lot of connections. So it was kind of no breaking through from the corporate end, but he's like, I'll introduce you to the right people. I'll help you to get started. I'll be there for you. And so just as we were like, you know, we did everything together, and when he lived 4 hours away, and the company, it was in Morris County, actually, which we were talking about before with Anna. But every Friday, he would leave to go home to his wife, who was 4 hours away, Albany, which is a 4-hour drive. So one Friday afternoon, he comes up to my dad, and he tells him, Len, I'll see you on Monday. Gives my dad a hug. And my dad went home, and exactly 30 minutes later, we get a call. Sai had a heart attack on the road. He pulled his car over, got down on his knees, and never got up again. It was honestly the first heartbreak that I can remember in my life. And I just remember the four of us, it was my parents. I remember seeing my dad, and we were all just heartbroken. This was like the first. So that was that. But Sai believed in us, and here we were with our little yellow cream. No connections, no money, and broken English, but Sai believed in us. And this was the birth of Nature Pure Labs, SW Inc. And for anyone who ever asks me, does SW stand for Southwest? SW stands for Seymour Weinstein, and it is the initials of Cy Weinstein, and his legacy lives in the name of our company. So, I'm sorry, I'm getting choked up. I told myself I'm not gonna get choked up. So this was part of, I guess, one of the first challenges that we faced. And as many business owners, we all know that there's so many different challenges that we go through. I'm sure that those stories of where we would drive for hours just for an opportunity for people to see us and nobody wants to talk to us about it. I think probably most of you guys have stories like that where you just keep going and going and going and getting rejected and getting rejected and getting rejected. But you must never, ever stop. You must never stop, because everything is possible. Absolutely everything is possible. And speaking about everything being possible, I'll go into another story in a little bit, but there was many challenges along the way. So with the Hippophaia berry, it's an 80% of our formulas today, and we were the first to introduce something I remember they used to come to us, are you from Siberia? We're like, no, but this is where it comes from. But it's so it's so important that whether you're faced with personal challenges or professional challenges, that you're strong. And the way to be strong, first of all, you have, which it was mentioned in many different ways by many different speakers, but you have to be so clear on what it is. Why is something so important to you? Why would your clients come to you? You have to know your value. You have to know your worth. You have to know why it is you that your clients should come to. And more importantly, you have to remember that you will go crazy if you start to think about all of the details of how to figure it out. How. By the time you go through your entire list of hows, you're like, I'll wait till tomorrow. First, figure out why it is that you want to do whatever it is that you want to do. But more importantly, set the goal and don't get stuck in the how, because you will never get started. You'll figure out how you'll do it along the way, because you will have all of your hows even figured out, and then something comes out of left field and you're like, I didn't account for this how. So one of the biggest advice that I can give you guys is know your goal, but don't get stuck on how you're gonna figure it out. Just little, for example, if say this speech, I was getting so stressed out about how am I gonna come up here, and then I was like, I wanna be able to give something to you guys, that I have something to give. I'll figure it out. Worst case scenario, maybe I'll trip, maybe I'll stutter, maybe I'll start speaking Russian, who knows? But you'll figure out the how. And I forgot, again, I have a slide. Oh my gosh, I should have had my slide up here before. But anyway, a little bit about that's my dad. I'm a daddy's girl, if you can't tell. My mom's amazing too, but but this is just a little bit about the journey, and I'm so grateful and I'm so honored through the whole process and through the journey. And today I'm a regular contributor for some of the leading magazines in the industry: Dermoscope magazine, Les Nouvelles Aesthetics, Skin Inc magazine. I've been invited to be a main stage speaker on multiple occasions at the International Congress of Aesthetics and Spa, which was really, really fun. But I specifically want to bring your attention to that picture on the left side. And I want to see if anybody can relate. So I started very, very young in the industry. Like I said, I literally was my dad's little scientist sidekick. I started out so early that I was on the other side of the whole spectrum, where there's so much pressure from the industry to be a younger age than we are. And I was on the other spectrum of it. I was so worried and I was so insecure that people are gonna say, but I'm not making this up. I used to come up to teach classes and I would get those looks. Who is this little girl and what is she going to teach us? And then 1 year passed, 2 years passed, 3 years passed, 5 years passed, 6 years passed. And then I started getting those comments of, Victoria, you're not aging. So it was, this is the first time I am so grateful that I can share with you guys that I'm not afraid to share my age. I'm 34 years old and I literally had to miss school. This was one of my first trade shows. So meaningful failures, what does that mean? Meaningful failures is take the failures as a blessing, okay? If we don't fail, if everything goes wonderfully and amazing, that's great and that's wonderful, but then why should we improve? Why should we become better? So whatever failures that occur, yes, you should brush it off and you should move on and you should be strong in the face of any adversity, but meditate on it. Make sure you have a takeaway, okay? Make sure, I am my biggest critic, which I don't know if it's good or bad, but even have a friend that you know means the best for you and ask them, where did I mess up? Like, what can I do different? What was my threshold? What was I lacking? And one of the things that I want to kind of shift our talk to is one of our greatest areas where we can become strong and powerful and be able to give so much more to our clients, not just from our hands, but also from what we can teach them, is our education. And I feel like usually our greatest failure or our greatest weakness comes from a lack of knowledge or a lack of education. So I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit. But before I do, speaking of challenges and failures and everything else, just for a moment, out of many challenges and out of many failures, this was one of the fruits of our labor. We have 7 trademarks and a patent, which I'm so grateful for. But this didn't come overnight. So you have to be so patient with yourself. You have to be so patient with yourself, and you have to be so committed to what it is that is driving you. What it is, you need to have a system in place. Like for me, it's music, it's writing, it's screaming sometimes. I talk to myself. I think I was telling Maxine before, I literally can just walk around, walk my dog, which is really nice when it's like Monday through Thursday. When I walk my dog, I have my headphones in, but when I observe Sabbath Friday to Saturday and I'm walking around talking to myself without my headphones, it looks pretty crazy. But whatever you have to do, have a system in place that allows you to kind of recenter yourself. So I'm going to lead into my lock and key first. So I feel like equations make it a little bit easier for us to kind of visualize and plan out. So imagine the lock and key. The lock and key, imagine your obstacle or your challenge or whatever it is that you need to overcome to be your lock, okay? And your keys, and every lock has a key, right? Your keys is education, investing in yourself and reading and constantly learning. Education is knowledge that gives you so much power and so much strength and so much confidence. And essentially, it is education that takes you on the next level personally, professionally. You understand and can connect to everything else on such a deeper level. So this way you can be connected both spiritually, but also through your knowledge. And speaking of key and lock, so we're gonna get sciencey here. Who's with me? I felt like in a beauty conference, we need some science. We need it. So here it is. Here it is, guys. So I want you to understand a little bit more about how the body works so you can better understand what's happening for your clients and even in your own skin. So in our bodies, we have hormones and we have receptors. So now imagine the lock and key. Your hormones are your locks and your receptors your hormones are the keys and your receptors are your locks. And when everything in the body or in the skin, when everything is in balance, there's a constant, consistent flow of key to lock activation, key to lock activation, which just keeps everything nice and flowing and healthy and balanced in our body. So when there happens any kind of imbalances in the body, the biggest one, menopause. And just a few words on that. Women today are going into menopause sooner than they ever have before in their life, whether it is diet, whether it is stress, whether it is so many other factors, the environment. Women are going to menopause sooner than ever before. And it is so important. It is such a specific clientele, but it is so important that you have something specifically to address their skin concerns. Stress. Stress causes fluctuation in our body, and besides for causing fluctuation in our body, it is a culprit to acne. It triggers the immune system. Anything that triggers the immune system, it increases the cortisol levels in our body, which causes inflammation in our body. Inflammation is the immune system telling us that it is in high alert. And when we are in constant stress it depletes our immune system. So biologically speaking, yes, stress is actually like killing us, but it causes acne, hormone-related acne, it causes premature aging, but it also causes that imbalance. Hormonal acne. Hormonal acne means that the androgens, the male hormone, is overactive. So these are all different skin concerns that are happening from within. So, oh, you can't see my slide. But anyway, we'll get into my slide in just a second. So, why is it so important to understand the receptor and the hormone system? Because if a woman is approaching menopause, the receptors do not have enough, they do not have sufficient amount of keys to activate the locks, the receptors, so there begins to develop a biological lag. Skin in a 5-year period will age more than it does over like 38 years. So that's how rapidly the skin is aging, and the collagen, everything is slowing down and everything is depleting. And in the side of acne, it means that the receptors are overactive. There are too many keys that are activating the receptors. So this is where I want to bring your attention to something that is just mind-blowing and a breakthrough in being able to treat the skin naturally without the pharmaceuticals, without anything that has to do with the skin. You can make a difference. So if you look at the chemical structure of real estrogen, and you look at the chemical structure of genistein, and genistein is derived through my father's patented technology through soy isoflavones. And this was a very big obstacle that we had to go through because there was a lot of talk about soy. So some of the obstacles and the technicalities included GMO or non-GMO. If it is non-GMO, then all of that is null and void, whatever information was out there. And for non-genetically modified soy, it is so healthy for us. And one of the obstacles that we were facing while working so hard, it took almost 7 years to get our patent, was the fact that, and this is like back-end obstacles that you would never imagine, the pharmaceutical and meat industry, they do not care about skin, but they were afraid if people start looking for, if people are treating their skin with something natural, then they won't use the pharmaceutical approach. The meat industry, if people start eating soy, then they won't eat as much meat. And this is exactly what happened, by the way. But there's so much miracle benefits from soy isoflavones. And the magic of the complex specifically, for the genistein to mimic the estrogen hormone, it has to go through a hydrolysis process. And this hydrolysis process can only occur through my father's patent, which is a whole science lesson in itself. But if you look at the chemical structure of estrogen, the lower bottom left region, and if you look at the lower left quadrant of the genistein, it is very similar. It is so similar that when you apply the genistein on the skin, your receptor thinks you've increased the amount of keys without ever introducing a hormone into your body. You trick your receptors, you trick your body to behave as it did when there was a higher level of keys or hormone, but without ever exposing or introducing your body to something foreign. And this triggers cellular memory. Every single cell in our body, it has a memory. And if you can trigger its memory and cause it to remember what it behaved when it was younger, then you can actually naturally cause the skin to behave as it did when it was younger. So this is totally, again, I'm like cutting it into a few minutes, but the genistein complex is able to activate the estrogen receptors, again, naturally. And this is just an example. This is all natural without any kind of pharmaceutical or external influence here. This was just the treatment before and after, and I always had questions. Why is she so red? And by the way, she's a breast cancer survivor, and she's also, just to mention on the side, she was red because she was having a hot flash. I sometimes get questions of, will this help with hot flashes? No, but it will help with anything that has to do with your skin and the fluctuating hormones. And I probably already hit the nail on the hammer so many times about how good Mother Nature is to us, but I wanted to mention even further how amazing Mother Nature is to us. Soy isoflavones, and specifically the genistein derived from the isoflavones, has this remarkable adaptogenic ability. What does that mean? So when the genistein is applied on the skin, it knows. How does it know? I have no idea. But it knows. It knows if it's the fact that the receptors are underactive or overactive. And why is this important? Because in the case of menopause, where the receptors are underactive, in the case of hormonal acne, the receptors, the androgen receptors, are overactive. And the genistein complex, in the case of acne skin, just knows to act the exact opposite, and it actually blocks androgen receptor, and in that way inhibiting the overactive androgens that cause hormone-related acne. And why is this so important? Because you're not just treating the skin topically, you're actually empowering the skin cells to help themselves from within. So you're actually improving wellness from the outside in, which is just as important from the inside out. And another story that I want to share with you guys. So this is me. Yes, this is me. And this was me at a point in my life when I was already obviously in the skincare industry. And of course, obviously, it was this amazing technology that made a world of a difference for me. So it's not just personal for me because I'm like, it will help you. It actually helped me. And this was a point in my life where I was teaching classes, and I was in the industry, and I was constantly surrounded by professionals. And we know, like, God forbid, if your client's coming in for a facial and our skin's breaking out, like, you gotta come up with a plan. Like, what am I gonna say? I don't know, I ate too much honey. I don't know. I don't know where that just came from, but but this was a point in my life when I had acne, and this was the first time in my life that I was dealing with major skin issues from the time that I was little. And I can tell you, it is so crippling. You don't want to go out. You don't want people to take pictures of you. You just want to be to yourself. You want to sit somewhere with, like, I don't know, your hair up and doing more unhealthy things. I don't know. That's where I was coming from. I felt like the unhealthy space was just fueling more unhealthy, which is why it's so important to, like, get moving, do things, music. I like blast music. Just have a system in place that gets you out of that zone, because whatever zone it is, we can get momentum into a bad space or we can get momentum into a good space. And this was actually after, so usually when this severe, it's 8 weeks consistent facial treatment, and I was doing the Soy Doctor clinical home care on a daily basis. But I want to share with you a little bit where I told you I would talk to you about everything is possible. So this was at a point in my life when I was pregnant. And many of us have many experiences and many stories about pregnancy and that whole space. And I went through in my life where I was so involved with the company, and I needed to be 100% present, to be 100% with my clients and everybody who's working with. They know I like to have that personal approach. And I like to know who you are. I like to know, I want to make sure that your businesses are growing. So I needed to be with you, but I was so disconnected. And when my husband and I got married, I was really excited to start a family. And I'll give you a short story, but I had 2 miscarriages before I had my first child, and a lot of what was going through my head is, I'm so healthy, what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me? And when I finally had a healthy pregnancy, I was so set on having a natural birth, not because it's right or wrong, but that's because what I wanted. And after 26 hours, I went into emergency C-section. And the things that went through my mind, oh my gosh, like, I probably should have been taken to the hospital. Like literally, I would have crazy thoughts of like, is this my child? Why didn't they bring him to me right away? I just had really crazy thoughts. So I had later found out it was like borderline postpartum, but got it back together, and some time passed, and my husband and I, we wanted to try for more kids. And at that point, I kind of was already stripped away from having a normal pregnancy experience. But I got pregnant, and everything seemed to be going normal, and everything was going amazing. And I remember going to the doctor, and everything seemed normal. And I had a doctor's appointment that my husband did not come with me to. And it was another miscarriage. And I was already so traumatized by the whole experience, given that my first miscarriage, I was taken off the airplane in an ambulance, where in the hospital I found out. So it was, I thought I was past that. And my doctor asked me, he's like, do you want to wait for it to pass? Or are you gonna do a D&C? And I said, I'll wait for it to pass. And every morning I woke up feeling more and more pregnant than I was the day before. And I couldn't understand. And my husband was like, maybe you need a second opinion, maybe the doctor's wrong. And finally I decided to do a D&C. And when I did a D&C, the doctor told me, thank goodness you did a D&C, it would not have passed. You had a partial molar. You had a partial molar, which means the pregnancy hormone that fuels the pregnancy started to fuel tumors in my body. And the doctor said that you absolutely cannot get pregnant for at least a year because you're at risk of cancer. Talk about a rude awakening. So that in itself, it was so scary. It was so scary, and I'm so grateful. Like, there are so many people that have so many more frightening things that happen to them, and so many. This was like, what are you doing? You have to give your 100% in everything. Like, you can't be afraid. You have to just, there was so many other things going on that allowed me to appreciate everything so much more. And I felt like during that time period, I was so much more even in the business than I could have possibly ever been. But there was a lot of things, my acne, with the business, I was literally trying to hold it together. I would drive up to the office hysterically crying every day, and I didn't understand why. Like, I had a business to run, and all I want to do is cry. And not because I was even sad, but because I felt so powerless. And what I took away from this is we have so much power than we realize. And our power lies in the things we do physically. Like, if I'm tired, I literally, it doesn't matter if I'm in the middle of the airport, you gotta be crazy. Going back to crazy, you have to be crazy. It's what's the point of living if we're not living 100%? And I'll tell you, just to kind of add the final thing in the story that inspired me to truly know and believe that everything is possible. After enough time passed, we tried again, and I got pregnant. And we had another healthy, beautiful baby boy, with the exception of his allergies, but you know what? I'll take it. But I never ever let go of the fact that it's not that it was important, but I just needed to know that I can do it. And I told my doctor, I want to try a natural delivery after cesarean. And it just seemed so impossible. It seemed so impossible. And after 31 hours, I had a natural delivery after a cesarean. And after that, I had another natural delivery after a cesarean. And what did that tell me? It wasn't even about the fact, baby or not baby. That was just my experience. That was my experience that taught me you have to appreciate every single moment. And anything is possible if you're willing to push through. So what? I had to scream, I can't breathe, and my doctor yelled at me, I'm about to take you to cesarean, to scare me. He apologized for that later. Whatever push we need, whatever it is, push yourself, have somebody push you. Do whatever it takes. But if you keep pushing, the impossible becomes possible. Thank you, guys.